Hey everyone, it's Tiffany at Aquatica San Antonio, bringing you tips that I recommend if you're planning a visit to this park. We spent quite a bit of time here this summer, so I hope you find these tips useful. When you come to Aquatica, you will walk through the main gate and they have security checks. And then when you get to this section, you can either go to the right, which is SeaWorld, or to the left, which is Aquatica. Discovery Point is also towards the left. We'll talk about that later in the video. Up front, there are guest services for both parks, so you can go to any guest service booth for Aquatica. The first tip I have for you is to have your swimsuit on before you go to the park. There are changing rooms, but they get really disgusting pretty fast, even early in the day. So I found it helpful to just go in with all of us having our swimsuits on and then just having to change at the end of the day instead of twice. My second piece of advice is to ride Stingray Falls first or whenever you notice the lines are short. This is easily the busiest ride in the park and it will have the longest rides. If you have a ride line pass, a quick queue, I would definitely save it for this ride because you will wait for a long time trying to get on. But it is definitely worth the wait and I would at least ride it once. Stingray Falls goes under the tank where the stingrays swim. You can also stop on your way in and pet the stingrays. They do offer feeding at certain times of the day, and if you have food, the stingrays become very interactive with you. My daughter liked just sitting on the side, reaching in for them and trying to pet them. There are tons of stingrays swimming around. They also have an animal excursion where you can go in the tank if you want to pay extra for that. We didn't do it. Okay, so my next piece of advice is to consider buying a quick queue. This allows you to cut the lines. They actually have two separate lines at most water slides, and if you're wearing a quick queue bracelet, you get to go in the quick queue line. They load that line much faster, and on busy days, you'll be able to ride a lot more and spend less time standing around in lines. I did find there were still short lines with the quick queue, but they weren't nearly as bad as some of the longer lines. Also, if you're visiting on a weekday, you might not need that quick queue right away, so you could buy it once you're in the park. The pricing is usually the same, and that way you can see what the lines look like before you make the investment in it. My next piece of advice is to bring a water bottle. Purchasing water in the park can be expensive, but if you have a water bottle, you can ask for a cup of ice water and just keep refilling your water bottle, and that doesn't cost you anything. If you're enjoying this content, please click the like and subscribe button to help us create more videos. I post a lot of videos related to family travel and places to explore with kids. If you want to do some Aquatica shopping, this gift shop outside of the park is actually bigger than the one that's inside of the park. So just keep that in mind that you have two options. Okay, my next piece of advice is to bring a puddle jumper to the park. You can notice Eliana is wearing a puddle jumper in this video. It's the little vest with the floaty arms over it. Puddle jumper is great for allowing little kids to swim, and they're allowed to use those in most of the kids sections of the park. It's awesome because it's a little more comfortable than wearing the life vest. They do have life vests available if you forget one, but I find my daughter's comfortable and swims better with a puddle jumper. Okay, my next piece of advice is to consider skipping buying all-day dining. All-day dining, I actually recommend if you're doing SeaWorld, and I talk about that in my SeaWorld video. But on the Aquatica side, the food options are kind of limited, and if you have the all-day dining, they become even more limited because you're only allowed to get items from one restaurant out of the whole park. So there was only one open most days I was there, and that was the only one you could shop at. There were a few other food stands, but they weren't included in all-day dining, so I found it to be limiting, and the lines there on a busy day were insanely long for the spot where all-day dining was available. So I would consider skipping it if you're just doing Aquatica. If you're doing Aquatica and SeaWorld in the same day, then you may want to consider making the purchase. My next tip is to visit Discovery Point. Discovery Point isn't actually inside Aquatica. It's to the left after you go through the main gate. As if you're walking towards Aquatica, you'll see signs for it. But Discovery Point is where you can see the dolphins. You can watch them doing tricks from above, and you can also go to this cool underwater viewing area of the dolphins. There's also a section in Discovery Point that has the sharks, so you can go check out the sharks and some other underwater life. It's a lot of fun, and it's actually free, more or less, to go to this section. So when you go into the park, the two parks that check your tickets are SeaWorld and Aquatica, but nobody actually checks your tickets to go into Discovery Point. So if you have a ticket for Aquatica or SeaWorld for the day, you can do Discovery Point with both of those. So even if you're not planning on doing both Aquatica and SeaWorld, you can still do Discovery Point with either ticket option. Okay, my next piece of advice is just to know the busy times. Aquatica is incredibly busy during the summer on weekends. The lines are long, it's crowded, and it's really hard to get a seat if you don't get there early. In fact, I actually never got a seat. I always just left everything in my daughter's stroller. The best time I found to visit Aquatica, if you can do it, is on the weekdays. So Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday tended to have the lightest lines during summertime compared to Monday and Friday and the weekend days. All right, my next piece of advice is just to talk about the park tickets for a minute. I was a Platinum Season Pass member, and I love that. I'll be making a video about becoming an annual pass holder. But so I was able to go back and forth between the parks. You can buy individual tickets to both Aquatica and SeaWorld. You can also buy them to both and use them the same day. I don't really recommend that because there's a lot to see, and it's hard to see all the shows in SeaWorld if you're spending part of the day in Aquatica. So I would definitely allow 2 days. San Antonio, Texas is military central. It's like home to the Air Force and where basic training is. If you are affiliated with the military, you can get a free ticket once a year to any of the SeaWorld parks, including Aquatica. So I would definitely sign up for that to get in free and use your one free ticket. All right, my last tip is to consider the height requirements. A lot of the tube rides little kids can't do. Eliana couldn't do most of the family tube rides. They do have lots of kids sections, but when it came to the longer tube rides, she just couldn't go on them. I just wanted to give this little turtle a shout out. I didn't notice him until after a few visits, so be on the lookout for a turtle. If you have questions about your upcoming trip to Aquatica, drop them in the comments below. I'll be glad to try and answer to the best of my knowledge. If you haven't seen my video for tips for visiting SeaWorld San Antonio, check out beneath this video. Also, please subscribe to the channel for a little more family stuff. I'll be making lots more videos about San Antonio as well as other places we explore.